Supporters of 39-year-old Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain rallied outside the Capitol Friday.
Nikki has been missing since May 18th. It's already been 49 days without her. Her kids need her.
Rally co-organizer and family friend Kay Saturn says as a mom herself, Nikki's case hits home.
I can only imagine what it is to be her kids right now, not knowing where their mom is.
Nikki was last seen by her family members May 17th. In the early hours of May 18th, a text from her phone told family she was driving her mother's-in-law vehicle back to their home near the Wind River Casino. She hasn't been heard from since, though her Chevy Avalanche was found in neighboring Tehama County a week later. She disappeared 2 weeks before Nikki's husband of more than a decade and father of her children, Tehama McCain, was due in court to face 4 felony domestic violence charges. Last December, according to Shasta County Sheriff's Office documents, Nikki checked into a Redding hospital with severe injuries. She told the investigator that Tyler had bound and beaten her over the course of 3 hours at their home just outside Anderson 2 nights earlier.
Why does this stuff keep happening? Hello, and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people. People who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including where is Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain. Now, if you haven't been following this case, this actually just hit my inbox a couple of weeks back from a couple of you guys suggesting you wanted me to take a look into this case, and my God, it is absolutely disturbing and just completely upsetting if these allegations are in fact true, which I am inclined to believe. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to break things up into 2 parts. We're going to go over that December 2023 police report that was filed. We're going to go through that. We're going to go through the timeline of events of the day that Nikki actually went missing, a little bit of the background between her history with Tyler and their relationship, as well as going through that document that I was talking about earlier. So with that being said, let's dive in. So I wanted to share this article. This was actually posted on July 13th, so almost a month ago, by Sean Schwaller. A lot of the reporting in this case has come from local news reporters, so which is good because it's good and it's bad. It's good in the fact that a lot of these local news stations have the flexibility to continue a story, to really follow it closely, but it's bad in the fact that if you don't have the support of these major media outlets, it's really hard to gain that fast momentum that stories like this need and cases like this need, especially when it involves missing people. So let's get into what happened that night so we can get a better understanding of this case. Nikki Saelee-McCain is missing, and she's still missing. The 39-year-old Shasta County woman's close-knit family is frantic with worry. Their last communication with Nikki was on Saturday, May 18, when she texted her younger sister, Chloe Saelee, at about 12:35 a.m. Nikki's brief text said she was driving the truck that belonged to her mother-in-law, Jeanette McCain. Now, to my understanding, from what's been reported, and we'll get into more about Tyler and his family tomorrow, but it's my understanding that she doesn't remember Jeanette McCain, the mother of Tyler McCain. She doesn't really remember what happened that night. I don't know how old she is. I don't know what her relationship was like to Nikki. I have no idea if that's credible. All I know is from what I've learned is that Tyler's family does have a tie to the casino and the community. Earlier, Nikki had accompanied her mother-in-law to the hospital to visit McCain's other son, Nikki's brother-in-law, Brian McCain, who was in the hospital because of a medical emergency. And her sisters did confirm that in this interview they did recently on the Pascal show. Highly recommend. I'll link that in my description box below. That night it seemed like the scene was a little frantic. There was an emergency. The entire family did in fact go to the hospital. Nikki, I believe, was also telling her sister about it, Chloe, earlier in the evening, that there was this big emergency and everybody was driving in separate cars, etc. So that seems to check out. That text message was the last known communication anyone received from Nikki. So again, that's the text message where she's saying she's going to drop off the mother-in-law's car um, after. So Nikki's family members noticed that according to their iPhones, Nikki's phone did not receive any of their text messages after Nikki's final May 18 message. They concluded that Nikki's phone had either been turned off, was broken, or perhaps the battery needed charging, because one thing that Nikki's sister said, actually, I believe it was on Nancy Grace, is if you are an iPhone user, you know that when you're connected to a Wi-Fi network or you have really strong data and you're sending a text message to another, or an iMessage rather, to another iPhone user, you'll see a blue bubble. There's no green bubble, that's a blue bubble. Whereas if your phone is out of service, maybe you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network, you're using your data, but it's like you've got like one bar, or you're texting a Android user, which it seems like in this case everybody had an iPhone in Nikki's family, so why would any of them receive that green bubble unless, again, for the following reasons: Nikki's phone was turned off, broken, perhaps the battery needed charging. Or again, she was so out of range. And what we come to find about where her car was found, which is interesting, is that it was in a very remote location where potentially she wasn't even getting any cell service, or very little cell service. So, and at that point, is it even fair to say that the person that was texting was Nikki or not? Her sister seemed to believe it was, based on her text pattern, but you don't know. All we know is that her phone was not connected to a Wi-Fi network. After a few days had passed, members of Nikki's family compared notes and collectively realized that no one had heard from Nikki since May 18. So now I just want to pivot really quickly to the Pascal show, where Nikki's siblings actually talk. Her sister Chloe talks about this text exchange.
Now, now the thing is I've heard a bunch of different situations here, right? A bunch of different scenarios. She was picking somebody up from the hospital, and then that's what she was saying in her text messages. Because I've heard a few differing pieces of information. So, what is it? Did she text you saying, "Hey, I'm picking somebody up," and then she disappeared after that? Or can you kind of expand a little bit on that correspondence that you had with her, Chloe?
Yeah, so in the text message, I'm just going strictly just directly from what the text messages did say. But in the text message, when she was at the hospital, she did mention that she was with her mother-in-law. Um, and then the last text message did say that she was on her way back to her mother-in-law's house to drop off her mother-in-law's car to her. So she didn't say if her mother-in-law was in the car with her or not when she was leaving to take the car to back to her mother-in-law's house. But I do know that she was at the hospital with her mother-in-law, because of the text message. She did say how the mother-in-law was feeling and about the situation.
So again, we can confirm, and this is why I like hearing from Chloe and Kay, because they've been very vocal as they can be, which is amazing. And like all gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous women, by the way. So we can confirm that yes, Nikki was at the hospital with her mother-in-law. It seemed like she was describing the scene. It seemed like Chloe was inclined enough to believe that that was in fact Nikki texting. So leading up to these events, all seems fine in the world up until that last text at 12:35 a.m.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that? About the mother-in-law, Jeanette Haywards, right? Can you explain a little bit about what Jeanette said, what kind of interaction she had with Nikki before she disappeared?
What we have heard from her was that she doesn't really remember what happened that night. This is what we have heard. But our understanding of that night was that there was a family emergency, so that everyone kind of rushed to the hospital, some in different vehicles. It sounds like it was kind of chaotic. So everyone kind of rushed there, and then at one point, it sounded like Jeanette and Nikki left the hospital, and that's why Nikki was driving her vehicle. And what I gathered from the messages was that she had dropped Jeanette off at her house, and then later that evening went back to bring the vehicle back to Jeanette's house.
So if I'm understanding correctly, Nikki dropped the mother-in-law off. But what Chloe was a little confused about, and this is what I'm a little confused about too, is that it seems like then Nikki drops the mother-in-law off. Nikki goes home because she's not there at the hospital for the mother-in-law. It was because of, according to this report that we were just going through, it was her brother-in-law, Brian. Okay. So then Nikki drops the mom off, Tyler's mom off. Then she goes home, I guess. And then she takes the car to drop the car off at her mother-in-law's house, which seems a little interesting to me because for me, that would mean that there would have to be a second person now, like, or just at least somebody on cue to take her back to her house, correct? Unless she was planning on staying over her mother-in-law's house. Now, I don't know the kind of relationship they had. I just know the kind of relationship from what's come out between her and Tyler. I don't know her relationship with her and Brian, the brother-in-law. I have no idea. But again, just sticking to the facts here, what it seems like is Nikki was fine. She was communicating in full communication with at least one of her sisters, Chloe, and drops the mother-in-law off after being at the hospital. Now, I'm not sure what time this is. And maybe we'll have more of that if charges do end up getting filed. And I mean, right now, the police are still treating this as a missing persons case, not a homicide. So I think unless charges are brought onto somebody, we're not going to really know exactly concrete times, or whether or not her cell phone was even recovered. I mean, that would be huge. So, like I said, there's not a ton that we know, but it's good to hear from her sisters because they're obviously the ones who know probably the most aside from Tyler himself.
And then from there, we're not really sure if she had gotten back to her house or if someone had brought her there. The stories there conflict a little bit, as far as who took her home, if she went home,
Right.
and whether she made it home. But as far as we're concerned, we don't really have a straight answer from the mother-in-law Jeanette about what happened that night.
Interesting. So she took Jeanette, right, back to Jeanette's home, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple questions here. So she took her back to the house. Have you seen any surveillance cameras or anything, street cams, etc.?
And that's a good question. That's a really good question because that was my instant. I mean, nowadays that just seems like second nature. If you don't have a cell phone attached to your hip and you're not filming what's going on in that particular moment, if you're at a residence, most people have a ring camera or some kind of surveillance footage. I mean, even dating back to the Chris Watts case, the neighbor who had the ring camera footage. I don't know if it was ring. I think it was ring, but had some kind of ring slash surveillance type camera installed, and he ultimately helped figure it out with the police. Now, I mean, they probably could have figured it out based on other evidence, but that definitely expedited movement towards them saying, "Oh yeah, it was Chris Watts in that case." So I find it interesting if she did have surveillance footage, are we going to see that? Are we going to get access to that footage? Because as you know from the Karen Reed case, I mean, how easy would it be to just go across the street and without even like necessarily asking it or knocking on any doors, but just visibly seeing? Because those ring cameras, as you guys probably know, if you're homeowners yourself, if you have a Ring camera, you know the doorbells look different than a traditional doorbell. They're styled a certain way, and you can see it pretty clearly, depending on how good your eyesight is. But if you're walking up somebody's driveway, you'll notice it right away. Sometimes if the person's inside the house and they have the notification on, you'll also hear it too. When you ring the doorbell, it also has a specific door ring. So I am curious to know, was there surveillance footage? And then we're going to jump back to the news article, but I wanted to give you guys some context here as well too.
Well, showing her actually operating this car or driving in that direction at all?
We have not. Jeanette does live by the Wind River Casino on the Redding Rancheria. So I know that there are cameras that capture all the cars coming in and out of those the Rancheria. And my understanding is that the Rancheria has been cooperative and submitted those videos to law enforcement, but we ourselves have not seen any footage.
Interesting. So the Rancheria, you said?
Yes, the Redding Rancheria.
Ready Rancheria. So can you explain to me what that organization is, or what is the Redding Rancheria is exactly? And
so we're going to jump into that tomorrow. Again, right now I just want to kind of set the stage for timeline, and then get into this report. So now I actually want to jump to this Nancy Grace interview that she did with her sisters, where they go over a little bit of what happened that night, in the time leading up to when Nikki stopped responding to her sister Chloe. Now, like I said, everybody has a different texting pattern. I know for me personally, I can go weeks without texting people, sometimes months. There's so many people right now in my brain. I'm like, I have to text that person because I never contacted them back. But nobody's reporting me missing because this is my typical texting pattern. Now, if I did that to my wife, that would set alarm bells off because she's my wife. I gotta answer for my wife. But for everybody else, that's normal behavior. But with Nikki, her texting pattern, and Nancy Grace actually has this, which is a good question. What's her typical behavior like? Do you believe that these text messages were actually coming from Nikki herself? So let's check out what her sister Chloe had to.
Answering phone calls or texts.
At first I was like, okay, this is normal. It's really early for a text message. Maybe she's still sleeping. But then I had noticed that they were green, because if you have an iPhone, if the text message goes through, it's blue. But then we noticed that text messages were green. And so I was thinking maybe her phone was just dead. So I didn't immediately panic just yet.
Okay, hold on, Chloe. Can you back it up one moment?
Yeah.
Go through that one more time. I've seen that on my phone too, where normally you send a text and it's in a blue bubble. And then sometimes it's in green. Now, slow down just a moment. You said too early in the morning. Maybe she was still asleep, but she's not a late sleeper to my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes. She's not a light sleeper.
I mean, with 4 children, who can sleep late? So you text her early in the morning. She doesn't respond, but
you gotta love Nancy Grace. She always has to Nancy Grace ya. Actually, I was supposed to see her at CrimeCon, and then I totally missed. I was working late that day, so I was a little upset I didn't get a chance to meet her. But so yeah, just like we were talking about before, is again, if you're an iPhone user, you know this. If you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network and you text somebody with another iPhone, you're not going to see that blue bubble, or they're not going to see that blue bubble. You're going to see a green bubble instead, and that just means that you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network. You're not sending an iMessage. You are sending a text message. So the text can still come through, but sometimes it might not come through until later, might get delayed. So in case you're not familiar and you don't have an iPhone. And that's essentially what Chloe says here.
with the children.
Yeah. So when it's blue, that means you have cell service, or that your phone is not dead. But when it's green, that usually means you either don't have service or your cell phone is dead. And so that morning we were kind of in a rush. We were getting ready to go to a soccer game. And so I was like, you know what, it's fine. I'll talk to her later. So I didn't hear from her, and we did have a very busy weekend. And then um, we didn't really think much of it, but then starting, throughout the week, we're like, wait, Nikki has not texted in our family group message. And so then I was thinking maybe she was just at my mom's house. And then by Tuesday, we were like,
Okay, hold
wait,
on right there. Let me follow up with that. Chloe, sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to miss a detail because, as we all know, and our other experts will jump in just a moment, every detail matters. Every
Mhm.
detail, the timing matters, the location matters. Now, you're saying you were texting early in the morning. You thought, hey, I got to go to the soccer game. I'll circle back with her. And then you realize, many hours later, hey, I never heard back from her. This is where I want clarification. You just assumed she had gone over to your mom's. Did I hear
Yes.
that correctly?
Mhm.
Okay. How far away does Nikki live from your mother?
Not very far, about maybe a 15-minute drive, not very far at all.
Okay. I want to check my information, Chloe, and I'm going to bring in Kay Ford. This is Nikki's other lookalike sister. Chloe, to get from Nikki's home to her mother's home, would she have to go past where her Chevy is finally located? Would that be en route?
No, not at all. That's a different direction.
Chloe, did your sister Nikki often go visit with your mom?
Yes, she did. So we just assume she's at my mom's house. And then Monday rolls around and, it's busy. It's the end of the school year. And so I'm just we're super busy. And so then by Tuesday, I'm like, wait a second, have you guys heard from Nikki? And so we text in the family group message, and we're kind of like trying to figure out where she is. I call my mom. My mom's like, no, we have not seen her. And so this is when we're really starting to panic. And so then on Wednesday.
Hey, right there. Sorry to break in, but what is her practicing custom regarding texts? See, I've got
So this is where I kind of wanted to lead up to is, what is her normal texting behavior? Because as we know, how easy is it for somebody to get a hold of, especially somebody like your husband who probably has your passcode, right? As couples, we generally share. I know I share my passcode with my wife. I share everything with my wife, and vice versa. But even still, even if Nikki was trying to keep that private, it wouldn't surprise me that Tyler would figure out a way to forcefully get her passcode from her, if these allegations are true. But regardless of that fact, he probably had her passcode, so it would have been possible for him to maybe pretend to be her. So this is a good question because, again, what's her normal texting pattern? But then also, do you think the text message exchange that you had with this person, Nikki, do you believe it was actually Nikki or not, or somebody else?
one sibling that never, you have to write over and over and over, and finally I have to write the spouse, okay, and say, hey, what's happening? That's normal. That's no big deal. The other sibling writes back just like that. So my question is, what kind of texter is Nikki?
Actually, she's a little bit of both, but
Okay. The reason I'm
doesn't get
asking is because at this juncture by Monday, it's still not really a big deal that she hasn't texted back, because sometimes she does that, right?
yes, but it doesn't go that long without her texting me back.
Gotcha. Listen, my sister, who I adore,
Then Nancy Grace does her Nancy Grace thing. So, okay. Nikki sends that last text message 12:35 thereabouts the 17th, and then through Monday it's crickets. But Sister Chloe and everybody else seems like, this is probably, she's probably just busy. She's got 4 kids. They probably have a busy weekend. We got a busy weekend. We got to get to the soccer game, yada, yada, yada. Come Monday, a few days later, she realizes, hey, she's not really active in the family chat. Let me see if mom has heard from her too. Ask mom. Mom says no. That's when panic ensues. Okay, so that's where we're at up until that point. So let's continue on with this article. Tuesday, May 21st. Nikki's family was panicked after not being able to contact her for 3 days, something that was unusual because the siblings, as we just heard in particular, kept in frequent close touch with one another. So this is Nikki and her family, just all like gorgeous women, fearing something similar had happened to Nikki. So again, similar to that December report that we're going to go over in a couple of seconds, they contacted the Reading Police Department to report Nikki missing. So they didn't have to go through that usual spiel that law enforcement likes to give. You got to wait 48 hours because they already surpassed the 48 hours. The missing persons case was subsequently taken up by the Shasta County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Units. Due to the fact that Nikki lived approximately 10 miles west of Anderson in the rural unincorporated community of Happy Valley. However, the family theorized that RPD had jurisdiction since Nikki's last known whereabouts was Mercy Medical Center, which is located within Reading city limits. Now, I believe that her whole family lives within that area. I think, as we just heard, Nikki said, not Nikki, Chloe had said she only lives about 15 minutes or so from her mom's house. So it seems like everybody was pretty much within that area. But according to police, this was out of the Reading Police Department's jurisdiction, which is why Shasta County, which may have been a much smaller police department, taking action on this case. Nikki, an Asian American of Mayan descent who is 5 feet tall and weighs about 100 pounds, has now been missing for nearly 2 months. The SCSO is currently the lead agency in the missing person investigation. So then here's our flyer, and I'll include that too at the end of this. Some members of Nikki's family told A News Cafe, which is this publication, that they are uncertain about many details, such as whether Nikki made it to her mother-in-law's house after leaving the hospital on May 18th, which we have heard just before from her sisters. They did not know if Nikki had parked her truck at her mother-in-law's home before traveling to the hospital, or if she drove it away from her mother-in-law's home before she disappeared. So all we know is that she was at the hospital. We don't even know if she made it back, but it seems like she did drop off her mother-in-law because her mother-in-law was home. So we have those 2 checkpoints that we can definitely cross off the list. Finally, they are uncertain of Nikki's activities before she visited the hospital with her mother-in-law. They don't know if she was traveling alone or who else, aside from the mother and son McCains, she may have encountered before, during, or after the hospital visit. So yeah, was Tyler with her? Was he already there? Because remember, her brother-in-law, Brian McCain, was the one. Brother of Tyler McCain was in the hospital. I don't know. Was Tyler working that day? What kind of work does Tyler do? I don't know. We know that Nikki was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't work. Okay. Which is also a familiar, if you remember from the Ashley Benefield case, when Ashley Benefield testified and said that he didn't let her work, Doug didn't let her work. Is this another case where Tyler didn't let Nikki work or convinced her otherwise as to, well, you don't need to work. You can just be a stay-at-home mom, as kind of a manipulation and isolation tactic to keep her away from people. Born in a refugee camp in Thailand in 1984, Nikki is the 3rd oldest of I'm sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit. However, they do know that shortly after Nikki went missing, the mother-in-law had possession of her vehicle again, the one Nikki had previously driven for the hospital visit the day she went missing. And they're reporting on behalf of the sisters here. Sister Chloe and Kay know that after Nikki went missing, somehow Nikki's truck ended up in the possession of the mother-in-law. Not the one that she was allegedly driving back, but the one that was her own vehicle that she took to the hospital when she went to visit her brother-in-law. Born in a refugee camp in Thailand in 1984, Nikki is the third oldest of 7 children. 2 of Nikki's siblings were also born in Thailand before the family immigrated to the U.S. During a recent appearance on Shasta Unmasked, local radio show on KCNR's 96.FM, Nikki's younger sister Chloe Saelee explained how her parents came to the United States in the mid-'80s in search of the American dream and ended up in Reading. So much for an American dream, right? Truck found in Tehama County on May 25. So, okay, Nikki goes missing. As far as we know, last communication was the 18th. Day that she was reported missing was the 21st. So 4 days later, but a week later, after her last known communication, May 25, 1 week after Nikki went missing, her truck, a pewter-colored 2002 Chevy Avalanche, was located around 50 miles southwest of Mercy Medical Center. Her last known whereabouts, law enforcement officials located Nikki's truck along Highway 36 around 50 miles west of Red Bluff in Tehama County near the small defunct town of Begum. Interesting. And we'll pull up that graphic in 1 second to show the distance of how far away she would have had to have been from the mother-in-law's house. Nikki had only owned the truck for a few weeks before she disappeared. So that was another thing. This was a new gift that Tyler had given her, which we'll come to learn more about in tomorrow's video. On May 30th, the SCSO released a statement saying Nikki's truck had been located and asked the public to contact the SCSO if they had any information regarding Nikki's whereabouts. The fact that Nikki's truck was found so far from her last known whereabouts suggests that at least 2 people and an additional vehicle were involved in parking the truck and leaving there. I mean, yeah, unless it was one person and they hitchhiked, I just can't imagine that. And if it is believed to have been Nikki who would have just randomly parked it in the middle of nowhere, why would she park it there? And where would she go on foot? I mean, we've seen so many bizarre cases, and this kind of reminds me a little bit, and I'll make sure to pull this up in full screen in a second. Bryceless Pizza, who went missing and he was in communication with his parent. A wildly different case, but another case where we know he was operating his vehicle, or at least that's what we believe. His parents were on the phone with him at one point. Somebody had actually checked in with him, I believe a sheriff or a police officer had did like a wellness check on him to see if he was okay. And then his car ends up somewhere and he's nowhere to be found. How many times have we seen cases like that? So I'm really curious to see and learn more about this area. Like how it seems pretty desolate from the way that they just described it. And not really like a town, but more of almost like a drive-through town. There are only 2 paved roadways between where Nikki was last seen and her truck's location. Before being dropped off, Nikki's truck was either driven west on Highway 36 from the direction of Bowman Road and Cottonwood, or on Plantina Road from the Reading area. Plantina Road connects with Highway 36 near Begum. The only other route is a 4-wheel drive dirt road that crosses a creek, which, I mean, if she had a Chevy Avalanche, so she could have taken that dirt road, but why would she? The coordinates for Nikki's truck location were 40.340394 to 122.851018. So then this is the location. This is a Google map where Nikki's truck was found, which is this little pin here, which is so Evergreen Union Elementary School, as well as 2 routes possible to reach the location. Nikki and Tyler's home is located in the middle of the region on the map in Happy Valley. So this is Mercy Hospital or Mercy Medical Center, where I'm assuming too that that's the same hospital that she went to. Not only that she went to when that police report was filed, but also the one where she was visiting her brother-in-law. Okay. I mean, that an hour and 10 or an hour and 3. Or you can take that dirt road. The only other route is a 4-wheel drive. It crosses a creek. So I'm curious to see. Yeah, I mean, like, you can just see from the Google map. There's mountains everywhere. Happy Valley's here. So yeah, she was far from home. I mean, it seems like at least 45 to an hour. No? So now I want to get a little bit into Nikki's relationship with Tyler. I'm gonna skip down like past the Jeanette McCain stuff. We'll get into her and his family ties to the tribal community, but I want to get into their relationship, what was found in this or filed in this police report, and then we'll tee things off for tomorrow. Nikki's husband and Jeanette McCain's son, a 39-year-old, so the same age, Tyler McCain. Tyler and his mother are both enrolled members of the Redding Rancheria. Nikki and Tyler have been married for 16 years. They have 4 children. According to numerous sources, during the last 4 to 5 years, Nikki and Tyler's relationship suffered from an increased number of violent episodes. So it seems like and we've heard this. We'll hear this in a second too from the Pascal show interview with Chloe and Kay, her sisters, describing the relationship, and they had stated that they were in this seemingly like happy and healthy relationship. So again, just because you're with somebody for an extended period of time, and this just reminds me so much of the Ashley Benefield case with Renee Benefield and Doug Benefield, how they were together for 15 years. Now, in that case, it seemed like the abuse started at the honeymoon, literally in the honeymoon stage, right? Whereas this might have been a slower burn. This might have been start off with more of verbal assaulting and then escalated to violent outbursts, maybe not taken out on Nikki directly, but around her and in the environment. So I can only imagine over time seeing the extremes grow at a quick rate. Now, they're both the same age. I don't know if they grew up together. I don't know if they are high school sweethearts, broke up, got back together, but 16 years, I mean, they were together since they were 23, married at least. So that could indicate to me that they could have been together since high school. I don't know. But these are questions that I have genuinely. On June 3, the subject of domestic in the couple's relationship was addressed publicly when 2 of Nikki's sisters, Chloe Saelee and Kay Ford, appeared on the television show Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Saelee told Grace she'd started to notice in 2019 that her sister Nikki occasionally had black eyes and bruises on her body. She said she thought Nikki didn't want to talk about the bruises because she was embarrassed about being a victim of DV and wanted to live up to her desired image as the stronger older sister. Okay, so Nikki's the older sister. I guess the oldest one. Didn't want to make her man look bad. Where have we heard that one before? Saelee and Ford both spoke to a news cafe. So again, this is the publication. Saelee just said, despite Nikki being a victim of DV, Nikki loved Tyler and said the two repeatedly tried to mend their relationship. Sources vetted by Nikki's sisters, Saelee and Ford, told a news cafe that the Redding Rancheria tribal court removed Nikki and Tyler's 4 children from their home due to the ongoing DV taking place in their home. One source who requested a news cafe did not disclose their identity to protect their safety said that during one of the couple's many fights, Nikki allegedly hit Tyler in the face with a cutting board with such force that it left a gash on McCain's eyebrow and forehead. That source told a news cafe that immediately following the cutting board incident, McCain called his mother to tell her what happened. Shortly afterward, law enforcement officials arrived at the couple's home and said they'd received a report that Tyler had been injured during a fight. The tribe's CPS took over and labeled Nikki the primary aggressor, the source said. It's giving me like Gabby Petito vibes. They told Tyler he could go home with his kids, but Nikki could not. Tyler told them no, he's going home with his wife. This is all words from Tyler. So this is from a source. The source said Nikki and Tyler lost custody of their children following the cutting board incident. Nikki's and Tyler's children now live with members of the family. So from what we learned, and we're going to get into more of the interview stuff probably in tomorrow's video, so I want to break it up as much as I can, but what we come to find out is that a lot of people seem to think that the children were taken out of their custody like recently, like since the December report. But according to this, and according to what we find out from Nikki's sisters, is that no, they were taken out of their custody 2 years ago. So they have not had custody of their children in 2 years. So this has been going on for at least 2 to 3 years. According to this article, 4 to 5 years. Okay. And it really started to escalate over these last 2 years, enough so that CPS said, no, we're taking your kids. The kids now live with family members. I mean, that's amazing. How often does that happen? That the kids actually get to stay with family, but it's still it's sad, it's heartbreaking. I can't even imagine like not getting your kids taken away from you. But just to clarify, it's not because of the December report, which we are going to go over in a little bit. Nikki goes to the hospital. Okay. So roughly 5 years after Nikki's sisters started to notice the bruises and black eyes, Nikki was hospitalized after McCain reportedly violently attacked her, something McCain denies. So innocent until proven guilty, but it's not really looking good for him. It's not, especially with what's in that report. I mean, it's just, if it's true, it's just absolutely disturbing and horrifying. On December 1, 2023, Shasta County Sheriff's Deputy Jerry Mall responded to Mercy Medical Center after receiving a report that Nikki visited the hospital to seek medical help after she was reportedly severely assaulted by Tyler at their Happy Valley home a few days earlier on November 29th, 2023. Deputy Mall's incident report noted that the area around both of Nikki's eyes was blackened, severely and swollen, and that it appeared as if she had been hit in the face multiple times. Nikki told Deputy Mall that Tyler attacked her when she arrived home on the evening of November 29, 2023. Tyler, according to Nikki, pinned her to the ground, and again, full trigger warning, and dragged her around while repeatedly hitting her in the face and yelling at her. Nikki claimed Tyler had a glazed and scary look in his eyes. Nikki told Deputy Mall that she believed Tyler periodically used methamphetamine. Multiple sources told a news cafe that they suspected Tyler allegedly used methamphetamine. Nikki also reported that Tyler pulled out pieces of her hair and poured cold water on her while pinning her down to the ground. According to the SCSO incident report, Tyler allegedly beat up Nikki for approximately 3 hours. 3 frickin' hours! This poor woman is just getting the ever-living crap beat out of her. And if he was under the influence, I can't even imagine how much more rage and violent that attack would have been. It's so upsetting. Nikki said Tyler bound her ankles and placed a piece of tape over her mouth. Nikki also said Tyler turned her on her stomach and sat on top of her. According to Deputy Mall, Nikki said she thought she was going to die, that Tyler might actually intend to kill her. That's California, so as far as I know, there's no stand your ground law there. Nikki allegedly lay on the ground for several hours as Tyler periodically hit her in the face with his hands. At one point, according to Nikki, Tyler tried to wrap something around her neck to strangle her. Deputy Mall wrote in the incident report that he did not notice any strangle or choke marks around Nikki's neck. Deputy Mall also noted that Nikki said she was not assayed during the incident. Tyler is substantially larger and stronger than she is, and there would be no way for her to fend him off in his fit of rage during the assault. Yeah, because remember, she's like 4'11". What does her photo say if it says her height and weight? Sometimes they do. Doesn't on this one, but I think they said she was like 4'11" and looks like she weighs like next to nothing, like 100 pounds. Nikki escapes her home at 11:30 p.m. on that night of November 29. She escapes from her home to get away from Tyler. She tells Deputy Mall that after Tyler went to the kitchen area in the house for several minutes, she grabbed her robe and car keys and fled to her vehicle, parked in front of the house, to attempt to drive away and escape from Tyler. Nikki said Tyler chased her out of the home and jumped onto the hood of the car. Christ. To try to prevent her from leaving the property, she nonetheless escaped and was able to leave the property. Shortly after the alleged attack, Nikki visited one safe place in Redding to receive support for being a victim of DV. Nikki also started to meet regularly with a victim's advocate, which her sister also has confirmed through some of the interviews she's done, that she was actually starting to feel hopeful for the future, which, if you recall from Bruce Ferris's testimony in the Ashley Benefield case, the most dangerous time for a victim of DV is when they're leaving their partner. She also started to meet regularly with the victim's advocate, which was provided by the Shasta County District Attorney's Office, which is interesting because, again, this is the same department that's handling this missing persons case. So they know the history. They provided her a victim's advocate. Now, I'm not saying that they're not doing a good job, because I don't know. There hasn't been a lot that's come out from the police specifically about what they found, what we have. And I feel like that's probably a good move, because the public shouldn't know everything during an ongoing investigation. That's how you get leaks. That's how you get people catching on to you. So I think it's good to play it close to the vest. It's always difficult, I feel like, for families, because you want to get answers and you want to feel like you're in the know, but at the same time, you have to keep everybody kind of at an arm's length. I remember with the Idaho 4 murders too, during that whole investigation, it was pretty tight-lipped from the police. Like, they made a couple of comments here and there, but overall, they were pretty tight-lipped, and they found Koberger, and I mean, here we are. We'll finally have the trial next year, but my gosh, like, so I think in those situations, but still, I think it's interesting that the same county that's handling the investigation for the missing person was also the same one who had heard about all of these allegations of DV. Deputy Mall arrested Tyler at his and Nikki's home after meeting with Nikki after the hospital. Tyler told Deputy Mall he was unaware of any injuries suffered by Nikki and that there had been no disturbance at their home on the evening of November 29. Yeah, right. Tyler also told Deputy Mall that he thought Nikki had gotten into a fight with another female. So this is where some of like this weird reporting comes out, and we'll get more into that tomorrow, about what Tyler had to say about all this. I don't want to get too sidetracked with like what he's told police and what actually happened. So I'm going to stop right there in the article, but we will get to more of that in Tyler in tomorrow's video. Now I want to go through this report that we just talked about from the news article where November 29, Tyler attacks her for 3 hours. She breaks free. She drives to this safe place. And then she gets in touch with her sister. Her sister encourages her, like, we got to go to the hospital, takes her to the hospital. And then that's where we are now. So this is the incident report from Shasta County Sheriff's Office. So this was 12/1/2023. So this is 2 days after the incident, 7:10 p.m. Narrative. On Friday, 12/1, at 23:12 hours, I responded to Mercy Hospital in Redding, California, to make contact with a female who shall be referred to in this report as confidential victim. The purpose of the contact was for a reported domestic V incident involving herself and her husband of 13 years. Tyler McCain, that occurred on 11/29/2023. So 13, 14, 15. So now it would be 14, 15 years. Between the hours of 20:30 and 23:30 hours at their listed address of blank. It should be noted that the original call of the report came in at around 19:10 hours on the date of 12/1. Upon coming on the duty later that evening, I attempted phone contact with the confidential victim, but was told by her friend she was currently being treated in the ER and not able to speak with me. In making contact with confidential victim at the hospital, I immediately noticed facial trauma to both of her eyes, as well as her forehead and facial areas. Both of her eyes were blackened severely. Both were also swollen in what appeared to be the result of a physical assault. I asked confidential victim who did this to her. She stated it was her husband, Tyler McCain. Using my department-issued iPhone, I recorded a conversation and asked confidential victim to explain to me what occurred. So I can only imagine this was probably what they were going to use in the case against Tyler for his charges that he was indicted on for DV. I understand why the charges were ultimately, or the case was ultimately dismissed against Tyler because Nikki wasn't present. She couldn't be present because she's missing. And this would be strong evidence, I would say, to have a video recording from the officer. I'm curious, I guess they don't have body cams at this particular county sheriff's office. Maybe they just don't have the resources for it, which could go to show how small this department might be. So he's recording this on his police-issued iPhone. I'd be curious if that was going to come up in the DV trial. Probably was. Because that would instantly negate anything Tyler had said. Oh, I didn't notice any injuries to her face. Okay. Well, here are these injuries 2 days after the fact. And as we know from the Ashley Benefield case, bruises take a couple of days sometimes to start showing. So this would have been probably the time where, yeah, you're going to really see what he did to her, allegedly. Olinda Road. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. She relayed the following follow in summary. Confidential victim stated on Wednesday, 11/29, she returned home to her address of blank Olinda Road, a residence she shares with her husband, Tyler McCain. She said they had been together and married for approximately 16 years and have 4 children in common, none of whom live with them currently. I mean, the kids were removed for the cutting board incident. I can only imagine what was going on in this house after the kids weren't there. I can't even imagine. Literally hell on earth. Getting back to the night of the incident, confidential victim stated when she got home at around 20:15 to 20:30 hours, Tyler was not home. Confidential victim went into her bedroom and started combing her hair. When approximately 15 minutes later, Tyler returned home in a strange mood and for some reason went and locked the back door of the house. Confidential victim stated that for unknown reasons, Tyler seemed extremely agitated and was not making any sense. When he contacted her in the bedroom area, she said he immediately jumped on her, held her down on the ground, and dragged her around, yelled at her, and asked her, "What's going on? What are you doing?" Confidential victim stated Tyler had a glazed, scary look in his eyes as if he were having some sort of mental episode. Now, I wonder how common this was. If this was, I mean, we know that there was violence in the relationship. How much of it was reported? How much of it was documented? I don't know. I mean, we have this report and we know that the kids were taken because of the cutting board incident. But I wonder if he was allegedly taking methamphetamine. And I don't know if any of you guys have had any experience or know any friends or family members who have experienced any kind of addiction like that. But if these are some of the signs, if you can get that same kind of glazed, like scary look, manic, have a manic episode, or if this was normal. But she said he was in a strange mood. So was this a typical strange mood for him, or was this especially strange? And if so, why? Was he different? Did he start taking these are all questions I'm asking because we just don't know. We don't know. She tried to calm him down, but to no avail, and he continued to torment her verbally as well as hold her down and began to repeatedly hit her face. Again, I'm just going to put a big fat trigger warning on all of this, guys. If you got to check out. I don't blame you at all. Confidential victim stated that Tyler's behavior began to grow more and more intense towards her, hitting her in the facial area with his open hands in a harsh, forceful manner. Open hands. And this is a big thing that bothered me too about the Ashley Benefield case, was that the prosecution was just so hellbent, specifically in the rebuttal. Like, was it opened, an open hand or a closed hand? And why does it matter? As we can see in this police report, with somebody who is violent towards his partner, allegedly, he was hitting her in the facial area with his open hands in a harsh, forceful manner. She said in addition to hitting her face, her eyes, and cheek areas, he also pulled her hair numerous times and even poured large amounts of water onto her from a water jug that was sitting beside her, causing her to become cold. And the same, remember earlier in the report too, this police officer says that he immediately noticed facial trauma to both of her eyes as well as her forehead and facial areas. Both her eyes were blackened and both were also swollen in what appeared to be the result of a physical assault. She said in addition to hitting her face, her eyes, and cheek areas, he also pulled her hair, okay, and then he poured the water on her and she became cold, Confidential victims stated this behavior by Tyler continued for approximately 3 hours, during which time he bound her ankles and wrists together with white tape. Jesus, like, oh my goodness. I gotta take a breath. I gotta like sip my coffee. He also placed a piece of tape over her mouth so she could not speak properly. What a freaking monster. Confidential victims stated part of the tape was not covering her mouth fully, so she was able to breathe, though she could not speak. During this time, confidential victims stated Tyler turned her over onto her stomach and straddled her from behind, pulled on her hair, and forcefully pulled her head back, saying he was going to kill her. I asked confidential victim what state of mind she was in at this moment. Confidential victim said she thought she was going to die, that Tyler might actually intend to kill her. Throughout the evening, Tyler periodically hit her as she laid on the ground. Confidential victim said one time Tyler attempted to wrap something around her neck, but was not successful in doing that. I asked confidential victim what type of object Tyler used to wrap around her neck. She said she was not sure, she did not see, only that she felt it. So I forget, were her eyes covered? Her mouth was covered. Over her mouth. So she could see, but she could not speak. I asked, she said she was not sure, she did not see, only that she felt it. And looking at confidential victim's neck, I did not notice any specific strangle or choke marks that could be attributed to an attempted strangling. In looking at the eyes of the confidential victim, it was clearly evident she had been struck numerous times with her injuries, suggesting they came at the hands of being struck by another human being. It should also be noted, confidential victim is a small person, 4'11" and 90 pounds in stature. Jesus. Tyler is substantially larger and stronger than she is, and there would be no way for her to fend him off in his fit of rage during the assault. Confidential victim said Tyler has done this type of thing before, but never this bad. Confidential victim said Tyler has done this type of thing before, but never this bad. I mean, it's so sad because you can literally take one story and just put it to a different woman's face or a different man's face, and it's all the same story. It's all the same words. It's all the same. He treated me nice in the beginning, or he's done this before, but it's never been this bad. How many times have we heard this? It's just so freaking heartbreaking. During my interview with her, confidential victim said she was not sure about Tyler's illegal drug use, but believed he used methamphetamine periodically. I asked confidential victim after the approximately 3-hour ordeal how it all ended. She stated towards the end of the night, around 11:30 or so, Tyler went into the kitchen area where he remained for several minutes. Believing this was the opportunity for her to escape, confidential victim grabbed her robe that contained her car keys, ran outside, and got into her vehicle. She said as she was leaving, Tyler came running out, after her, and jumped on the hood of the car, telling her to stop, which she ignored. Good. I asked confidential victim if Tyler essayed her during the incident in any way. She said he did not. After leaving her residence, confidential victim went to her sister's house in Reading, where she has been staying ever since, and eventually made the report to law enforcement. I asked confidential victim to describe the punches Tyler hit her with. She said it was not really a fist, more of an open hand, and that he hit her 10 to 15 times in her facial area, including her eyes and her forehead. Confidential victim could not see what he used to wrap around her neck, but believed he may have been trying to suffocate her. Confidential victim said she has not spoken to Tyler since, and he has not called her. No one else was at the residence when this incident occurred, and there were no witnesses to contact because it was in their house. Kids weren't home. Nobody was home. It's sad. She couldn't scream out. I don't know how close or not close their neighbors are, so if she did scream out, if it would have gotten anybody's attention, if anybody would have even heard. But I mean, that just goes to show that, I mean, you can sustain those types of injuries without it being a closed fist. Cruella de Vil. But anyways, confidential victim said she has not spoken to Tyler. Okay, we said that. No witnesses to contact. We just have, I know this is hard, guys. We just have a page and a half left of this. Photos of the injuries to confidential victim as well as a medical release form were signed and will be added to this report. So I'm sure that was going to be part of the trial as well too. The photos will be booked into evidence after they are transferred to a CD-ROM. My recorded interview, the confidential victim, will also be converted to CD-ROM and later booked into evidence. At this time, confidential victim will no longer be living at the Olinda Road address. Will be staying for the foreseeable future with her sister in Reading. Confidential victim was advised to go to one safe place in Reading at her earliest convenience to get assistance in obtaining a restraining order against Tyler. She was also provided a Marcy's card, a victim of violence card, a violence crimes pamphlet, a report number, and my contact info in case she had any questions or concerns. After speaking to confidential victim, myself and assisting deputies responded to Olinda Road to contact Tyler McCain. Upon responding to that location, Tyler subsequently came out of the residence, met us in the driveway. So this was from the article we were just reading. He was taken into custody without incident, placed in handcuffs that were double locked and checked for a proper fit. He was then placed in the backseat of a sheriff's office patrol vehicle and transported to jail without incident. Prior to being transported, I informed Tyler he was being placed under arrest for DV, as well as other charges for the injuries sustained by a confidential victim during a domestic V incident. At the jail, I read Tyler his Miranda rights from my card issued to me by the Shasta County District Attorney's Office. Tyler verbally stated to me he understood his rights and agreed to speak to me regarding this incident. I first confirmed confidential victim was in fact Tyler's wife. He stated she was, and that they had been together for 13 years. I asked Tyler if he was aware of the injuries his wife, confidential victim, had upon her face and body areas. So I'm curious because before in his report, he noted that he recorded his interview with Nikki. But I don't see here, because now they're probably in the, I don't know, maybe they're in an interview room and there is camera footage, so he didn't need to record it on his cell phone. And if that's the case, he wouldn't probably need to document that, but I would be curious if they have interview footage with Tyler from this night. I asked Tyler if he was aware of the injuries. Tyler said he is aware of them, but that he did not actually see them. Okay. Interesting. He said he last saw his wife on the 29th during evening hours at around 8 p.m. When I asked if there was any kind of disturbance between them, he said no, there was not. Tyler then told me that he believed his wife had gotten into a fight with another female. So this is where all this crap comes in. This is why I want to get into the police report, because we don't know if this woman even exists, right? We don't know if this is just what he's saying. And so far from what I've seen, there hasn't been any evidence to prove that there was another person potentially who could have caused these injuries. Not saying that there couldn't have been, but I mean, you're saying, yeah, I'm aware of them, but I didn't actually see them. Like, what does that even mean? But now he's saying, oh yeah, she got into a fight with another female. That's how she got those injuries she currently has upon her body. So then I asked Tyler if he saw the fight take place. He said he did not. Tyler's statement sounded inconsistent, saying he believed the confidential victim was having an affair with another female. Which, I mean, again, has another female even stepped forward and said, yeah, I was dating? I mean, I guess if you got into a fight with her, you probably wouldn't, because you would be top of the list suspect one. But I mean, this is just like, wait, what? I'd be so curious. I mean, if he was taking methamphetamine and he was still like rolling, is it possible he was still? I don't know. I'd be so curious to see this interview if there is footage of it. But then went on to say that they had got along great and have been together as a happy couple, never having any type of physical altercations between them, which is not true, buddy, because your kids got taken away because of a physical altercation between you two. But okay. When I again asked Tyler if he saw the fight between them, confidential victim and this alleged female who is nameless and faceless, or if he saw the injuries that she had upon her face, he said he did not. I informed Tyler, his wife and confidential victim, reported him as being the person who caused numerous invisible injuries to her face during a violent encounter at their shared residence on Olinda Road on 11/29. Tyler said he did not strike confidential victim in any way, and he did not know how she received the injuries she was treated at the hospital for. But you just said, but you, but you just said that you believe she sustained those injuries from getting into a fight with another female. So, which is it? Do you know or do you not know? It's a simple question. Most people who don't know don't really need to struggle to say, "I have no idea. Maybe this happened. I know she was talking to this person and I don't know." But it's not, "Oh no, I think she got it from this." And then 5 seconds later you're like, "No, no, no, I have no idea." No. Based on the totality of the circumstances and based on the fact that the injuries upon confidential victim were consistent with that of DV, I informed Tyler he was being charged with 273.5 PC felony DV, as well as false imprisonment PC 236 a felony, and PC 422A terrorist threats, also a felony. The DV related charges stem from the fact I observed physical injuries upon confidential victim she sustained at the hands of Tyler McCain, her husband. The false imprisonment is due to the fact that victim stated he bound her hands and legs with tape, preventing her from leaving the house. He also chased her out. The PC 422A terrorist threats for the fact that he threatened to kill confidential victim numerous times during the course of the incident and was in great fear for her own safety and well-being. This concluded my contact with Tyler, and he was booked on the listed charges. Prior to transporting Tyler to jail, I was given permission by both confidential victim earlier at the hospital and suspect Tyler McCain to enter residence and retrieve confidential victim cell phones. During a cursory safety search of the residence, 5 firearms were found inside the bedroom area in plain view where both Tyler and confidential victim reside. Tyler is not a convicted felon and is not prohibited from owning firearms, but a records check revealed that one of the firearms, an AK-47 style rifle, was reported to be stolen out of Oregon. I did not know that. That rifle, as well as the other ones, were taken for safekeeping and later entered into evidence as recovered stolen property and for safekeeping. Sergeant Gusas collected the firearms along with ammunition, booked them into the Shasta County ID lab. Tyler McCain was later served with the receipt of the property at the jail that he signed in my presence, and that will be downloaded and added to this report. So can you, what, I don't know what the laws are in California for owning firearms, especially if it's stolen property. Like, do you get hit with a fine? Or because I feel like, I mean, why, if not, and that's some serious artillery. So a little sketch of Dutch. I also look for the type of white tape that confidential victim reported as being tied up by Tyler with laying on the floor in the bedroom area, but did not observe any in plain view. So, I mean, that would have been pretty strong, compelling evidence, but still, nonetheless, the case was dismissed. If Nikki is found safe and sound and she wants to press again, she can do that. She can refile. This report will be forwarded to the DA's office with listed charges based on the totality of the circumstances in this incident show that Tyler McCain was the primary aggressor in this matter. Case status closed forward to DA's. And there we have it. So I'll link to this document in the description box below. Tomorrow we will pick up with the rest of the article. We'll get a little bit more into Tyler's background, a little bit more into their relationship from other people's perspectives, specifically her sisters. We'll dig into the Pascal show interview between the two sisters as well too, because a lot came out just in terms of confirming certain series of events that have been slightly misreported in the news outlets that have been covering this case. So I want to make sure that we're getting it right. I also reached out to CAL FIRE to see if I could get my hands on a copy of the fire report from the fire that he was cited with. So we'll see if and when I can get my hands on that. So that being said, we're going to stop right here, but like, what a fascinating case. I mean, it's just so disturbing. It's so upsetting. There were so many signs. If this in fact was going on for years, how many times was any of this reported? Was it not reported? I mean, as we know from these cases, a lot of times this stuff does go unreported, and it takes a level of where you feel like it's the time where you could actually die, that you finally get the courage to break away from the situation. And I mean, more power to Nikki for doing that and for realizing that her safety is more important than this man. If these allegations are true, but I mean, after reading that police report, how could they? It seems very, very, very real. And my heart absolutely goes out to Nikki, her family, her children. I mean, it's so sad. It's so disturbing. But like I said, tomorrow we will wrap things up with where we are today in this case. It doesn't even feel right saying if you enjoyed today's video. But if you thought this case was interesting and you want to help get Nikki's story out more and reach more people and maybe get the attention of more serious news outlets that can actually help and pick up some speed and momentum and getting this investigation just the spotlight that it deserves, then make sure you hit that like button more than anything else, because it will help show the new YouTube algorithm that this is newsworthy news. Nikki's story deserves to be heard, and we need to continue to keep this story spotlighted. She's a mother, she's a sister, she's a daughter, she's a friend, and she deserves to be found safe and sound and to live the absolute best life that she wants to live for herself and not in fear. And to know that, yeah, there is a brighter and better world out there for you. So let's get Nikki home safe and sound. Hit that like button. But if you want to support this channel, you can also hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next update on the series from me. And we just launched our membership community as well too. So if you have any case suggestions, you'll be shot up first to on the priority list for all case suggestions. You just have to click all you have to do is just click the join button at the link below. I also want to just take a minute to share the Nikki McCain image flyer. I think the reward now is actually $30,000. So we've upped the reward. There's also a Nikki McCain Facebook group as well too, which I'll share my link below. I'm not logged into my Facebook right now, but so you can call this number if you have any information, any tips. She has brown red hair, brown eyes. She's 5 feet, 4'11", give or take. Weighs about 90 to 100 pounds. She's been missing since May 18th, approximately. We found her Chevy Avalanche, and she's a mother of 4. And if you have any information, you can call the sheriff's office at 530-245-6000 or the NorCal Alliance for the Missing Anonymous tip line at 530-378-4491. And again, there's a $30,000 reward. This is an older flyer. Just share it. Get this news out as much as you can. Nikki needs to be found, and her family. This is the license plate too, by the way, of her Chevy Avalanche. Nikki's family deserves it. Nikki deserves it. And most importantly, her children deserve it. So let's get Nikki home safe and sound. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.